Hello everyone, and welcome back to For the Minions, a weekly show where we start off talking about some of the third-person MOBAs currently in development, and it quickly degenerates into reminiscing about the glory days of Paragon. This week we have our news and updates, as always, a PSA about closed alphas. We're going to discuss why hashtag every 3 weeks contributed to the fall of Paragon. Then we have a pretty common suggestion that goes through the discords for these games. I am your host, Mongoose. Joining me, as always, is my sister from another Mr. Mandy Mal. Mandy, how you doing?
I am fan-friggin-tastic. Thank you so much for asking.
Excellent. Also joining us today, in case you haven't noticed already, we have a very special guest host. You know him from his YouTube channel and from his Twitch streams. It's Britik. How you doing, Britik?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the show. Excited to talk about some Paragon stuff.
Hell yeah, we're excited to have you for sure.
Yeah, we know you're good at it, so.
Well, that's what other people say.
So, for the people who don't know, who's your favorite Paragon hero, and what's a little bit of your background with Paragon?
So my favorite hero is Grux, and that ties
a
lot into my background. So. My background before Paragon, when it came to MOBAs, I only played League of Legends for like 2 months, and that was like in the summer of 2015. So then, 2 months, never touched it again. Played some first-person shooters. I've always been a first-person shooter kind of guy. I did semi-professional Call of Duty, played in tournaments and won first places and stuff like that. I played Destiny. So that's basically how my YouTube channel started, was just guides for competitive Call of Duty, and then it moved on to Destiny. I have a few videos with over 100,000 views for Destiny because I did guides for loot and stuff like that. And then when I got into Paragon, I was like, whoa, this game is really cool. It's really action-packed. And I wasn't too big into MOBAs. I was more involved with the third-person shooter aspect of it because it reminded me of Gears of War. I'm like, this is really badass. So I got into that, and I started playing, and I realized very quickly that I was just better than a lot of the other people around my level. And I'm like, well, shit, if I'm this good already, then maybe people would like to see guides from me, like I've always been doing with previous games. So that's when I started doing my my Ultimate Hero guides, and then Britik Beast builds. Those were like my two trademark playlists that people watch me for, and then it just kind of rolled out. When I played, the reason Grux relates to this is because when I played League of Legends, I was a Sejuani main, which is a jungler in League of Legends. So I already knew the concept of jungling in a MOBA from League of Legends, even though, it's a top-down click game rather than a third-person MOBA. So that part was different, but it wasn't too far of a stretch because, like I said, my aim was already really good from all my first-person shooter experience. So my aim was good, my jungling knowledge was already there, so those two things helped me kickstart my tips and tricks stuff, and that helped me get ahead of the competition early on. And Grux was just so dominant in the beginning of the game, especially when you would put a stupid crit damage lifesteal build on him that would never work down the line. But in the very beginning, you could easily 1v5 the whole team, especially with his passive that gave him bonus health when he killed jungle creeps. So later on in the game, he'd just have 300 bonus health just for being Grux. And then he would have all that extra damage, and his ultimate was insane, and he had the stuns and a getaway from his dash before they changed that to an uppercut. So Grux was just an awesome all-around hero. I loved playing him a lot, and I was always in the jungle, and it was just awesome pulling out those 1v5s with Grux, which is why I just fell in love with him so much. And just throughout the course of Paragon, he was always a really solid pick. Even when he's been nerfed, he's been in the meta rotation up all the way until the very end, when everything just went to shit anyway, so we don't count that.
Nobody ever booed a Grux. Nobody was ever like, oh, why don't you pick somebody else? Like, everybody, like, if you pick Grux, everybody's cool with that.
Yeah.
So, let's go ahead and get into the news and updates for this week. Starting, we always do this alphabetically, and we're going to start with MetaBuff. They've been talking about, they have a heavy emphasis on their sound engineering. They have a loaner license for Weiss, which is from Audio Kinetic, which is like a company that helps with the sound engineering for games. It's a pretty huge company. It's nice that they got this this loaner license from them. And they're recording various announcer packs, and you'll be able to choose which announcer you have in-game, which is a feature that is in a lot of other MOBAs, but was never in Paragon. And I think it's a cool feature, and a lot of people are going to love that. And as far as the sound engineering goes, they're going to try and make it more like be able to hear far away sounds, sort of like the million battle royales that are out right now. You can hear footsteps coming closer and closer. They get louder as they get closer. That was never really the case in Paragon, but they're going to do that with Core, which I'm very excited about. What do you think, Britik?
Well, from my personal experience playing first-person shooters at a competitive level, it's the term is called sound whoring. When you turn up your headphones all the way up so you can hear footsteps across the map. Like when I'm playing Apex Legends, for example, you're talking about battle royales, I can hear them like 200 meters away because of the mix amp and everything I have. So audio is a very important important tool in the toolkit of a competitive player, I'm sure. So that is just another thing to kind of increase that skill ceiling and make the game more competitive. And then going back to the announcer pack real quick that you were talking about, I actually demoed one of the announcer voices on my channel through a little snippet. It was the female one. And it's really good that you mentioned that there are going to be multiple and that people will be able to pick, because not too many people like that one. A lot of people just prefer the original Paragon announcer, and they might want, a deep male, sadistic kind of voice in the background instead of a kind of like a jolly female voice, who's kind of like the difference between like a Smite commentator and like the Halo announcer, right? Like Kilimanjaro, like it's just so epic, and I'm glad that they'll be able to. At least they're playing around with that idea, and I really hope they're able to incorporate different voice lines. I think that's really good.
Which would you prefer, Mandy?
I really, for nostalgia's sake, I think I want that the original, Paragon, male announcer. He was kind of epic, no pun intended. He was like, like quadra kill and all that kind of stuff. Not that I heard that very often, but still, I think I would prefer it. I was excited when I heard there's going to be a female voice because, girl power and all that, but I don't know. I'm down with having the choice between the two. Maybe one game I feel like having a little jolly voice, and then the next one I want something a little more epic. So, but I think, like what Britik was saying earlier about how sound is such a big, it's not like a sexy thing to talk about. It seems like a small thing, but it makes a big difference. And I think sound was one of the things that played such an important role in like the immersion of Paragon and just building that environment and everything. So that's really exciting to hear that they're putting a lot of thought into their sound engineering.
Oh, for sure. Then on a less flashy but very important side of things, their build machine is up and running. That's just kind of a quality assurance thing that helps to kind of automate small tasks within trying to run everything and synchronize everybody working together. And it helps keep everybody using the same versions of any kind of software that they're using. So that's cool that they've got that up and running and that they're using it. And then the survey that we talked about on last week's show was released to the general public, had a lot to do with if you're a casual versus competitive player, and what you feel about draft locking and various heroes locked into roles, which I don't think heroes should be locked into roles. I think if you want to play Muriel jungle on a lark, then go ahead and do that. Just, maybe talk to your team about it first. But yeah, I think that's something people should be able to do. It's far be it from me to tell other people how they should have fun playing the game. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I know that was something I specifically mentioned when I filled out the survey, is that I liked that you could play creatively in Paragon. So I agree with not locking in, somebody to a certain role necessarily.
Yeah.
What about you, Britik?
I agree that heroes should scale in a certain way. For example, like Steel's health and armor should scale better than Twin Blast's health and armor. Twin Blast's damage should scale better than Steel's. So that would push them into a certain role better than others. But at the same time, if you want to jungle Countess just for shits and giggles, then you should be able to jungle Countess. I remember streaming with jungle Countess before they nerfed her dash, her shadow slip ability, where it used to insta-kill jungle minions. And then they nerfed it to where it only did a little bit of damage. So before they nerfed it, you were actually able to somewhat decently jungle with Countess. And so when I would be playing with my viewers, I would be on an alternate account at a lower elo bracket, because I usually played at max MMR against all the gods that you've seen in PCL and stuff like that. and I would just be playing with other viewers so that our elos wouldn't be too different. I would be on a lower alternate account where, according to Agora.gg, would be like low gold, for example. And it was just tons of fun. Like, if Countess was locked to just be either mid lane or solo lane, and I couldn't pick her in the jungle, then I would miss out on that opportunity just to mess around and do something I never get to do, because at higher MMR, you don't get to mess around like that. Everybody everybody plays for that W. You don't get to have fun anymore once you're up there. You have to try all the time. So it was fun to just goof off with Countess in the jungle. So yeah, no hero locks, but naturally you will have certain heroes just gravitate towards a certain role based on their mechanics and how they scale.
Right.
Agreed. Yeah, very well said.
So moving on, so they had some questions that they had answered from the Brazilian fans of Metabuff and Core, and I picked a few of them out from what they could answer. First one was, will there be hero bans in ranked? This kind of answers two questions. The answer was yes. So yes, they will have ranked, which is a good thing. A lot of people have been asking for ranked in all of these games, and there will be bans in that ranked. So there will be a draft. Let's see. The other one, is it possible to play with controller on the PC? We aim to implement controller for PC, so I don't know if that means in the alpha or not, but it will come down eventually. And will you be able to create heroes in the future with the same visual quality as Epic? The answer was yes, we absolutely have the talent on board to create character models of the same quality. So all three of these questions I found particularly interesting, and was happy about the answer. So yeah, what do you, so ranked mode. They didn't ever had ranked mode in Paragon. I don't know why. It was always Agora.gg, as you were saying. I think any of these games would benefit well from a ranked mode.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that the community has been pretty vocal about. So that, you know, like you said, that does answer two questions there. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, a ranked mode was something that Paragon was in dire need of, and I understand the argument that they were still in beta, like you don't want to release a competitive playlist until all the bugs and stuff are fixed. But the beta of Paragon was more of a full game than some other full games out on the market. And so it's really hard. Technically Fortnite is still in beta,
yeah.
So it's hard to make that argument at this point because the definition of beta has clearly changed over the years. And one thing that was really bad, especially that led to a lot of toxicity in Paragon, was the jumbling of competitive players and casual players together in the same playlist. Because at least in ranked mode, you have the really competitive players off doing their thing. They're always playing ranked. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to be the best and get all those bragging rights and play the best competition. Whereas the casual players are just trying to Muriel jungle, right? They're just trying to have fun. They don't care. And when you get that clash, like you have 5 people on the same team, 2 of them are trying really hard to win, and one of them is just doing Narbash jungle, and the 2 tryhards are yelling at Narbash jungle, typing away on their keyboards. So that creates a toxic environment because maybe that dude who's playing Narbash jungle, maybe he works 60 hours a week and he's just trying to relax and have fun. He doesn't care about his KD 8 or whatever. But the other people are like, 17-year-old, 16-year-old still in high school. They got nothing better to do except try and become streaming gods like Ninja or whatever and trying to be the best and blow up. So these conflicting interests create a lot of toxicity, and being able to separate it into 2 different playlists, like a ranked mode and then just the regular casual mode with no pick bans, whereas the ranked mode does have pick bans. I think that would be really, really important, and that should be implemented as soon as possible. Like, as soon as you have, like, even if you stick with, because I know Core, for example, announced 15 heroes at closed alpha. If they stick with those 15 heroes for a long time and just make sure to implement a ranked mode first and then start releasing the rest of the heroes, I would be totally okay with that, because then it gives them time to polish out those first 15 heroes. It gives them time to polish out the playlists and everything, and then you can start doing all the fancy stuff and the cosmetics and the skins and the tier 3 skins. Because as soon as Epic saw the big bucks start coming in from all the cosmetics, they forgot about everything else. They forgot about their broken theater system. They forgot about ranked mode. They forgot about listening to the higher up competitive players and just catering down to the people who were just finding the game on PlayStation Store. Because the hardcore competitive players, those are the veterans. Those are the ones you know are going to stick around. You should listen to them more than just the people who are like, oh, hey, this looks cool. I have a week to kill, play the free game, and then they never play it again. So that ranked mode was at the root at all of that, I believe. I'm very strong advocate for ranked mode.
Well, we know that it's coming to core, so that's good stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's really. Oh, go ahead, Mandy.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think it's interesting too that I'm glad you picked the one about having a controller on the PC, because I did have a question about that. I think it was on my AB map testing video. Somebody had asked me, and I was like, I don't know. So now I know, and I will go back and I will answer them.
So, moving on from MetaBuff, Mandy, you have the updates for Omega.
Yes, so they have kind of slowed down with their streaming schedule, and they want everybody to know they actually, I think it was just today, Smokey put an announcement in the Discord, which again, if you guys aren't in that Discord, I would highly recommend that you check it out, because it's a great place to find information and just to kind of chit chat with everybody. But so they're quieting down, and they're really starting to buckle down with their internal testing. So nothing is wrong. It's not that they're, have encountered problems necessarily, but it's things they can't stream. So they just wanted the community to know that, they aren't streaming. They probably won't be streaming until they've kind of finalized more of that internal testing. And then there was some alluding to a big announcement. Not sure what it is. It could be maybe like a firm alpha date. I don't know. It could be. I know there's been talks about a trailer. So we'll have to kind of stay tuned and find out what they have in store for us. But I know I'm excited for it.
Yeah, they're getting really, really close to their alpha, and I'm super hyped to get back into Agora.
Oh, I know. Really exciting.
Yeah, I actually talked to Sergeant Smokey today because I saw that announcement. So I hit him up, and I was so busy I didn't even notice that they were slowing down their streaming schedule. But apparently so many people were getting so concerned, and they were starting to spread rumors that, the game's shutting down. Oh, it's closed. No, they're going to close because they stopped streaming. Oh my god. I was like, I'm a really big proponent for keeping your cards close to your chest until you have a winning hand. And so if they're in there testing out all the bugs, testing out all the stuff, they want to clean that out first. They don't want to market something unfinished. They want to try, and even though they're being open very much so, but at the same time they want to try and make sure that when they do show that first bombshell reveal, they want it to be as polished as possible. They don't want to be streaming, getting all the kinks out and everything, because to be honest, that stuff's not even too interesting anyway. Like, it's just
think that's the game. They'll think that's the game.
Yeah, and it's bugs. A really bad first impression. Yeah, so that's why they're doing that.
Yeah.
So don't worry about Predecessor. It's on track. Not only on track, but coming soon.
Yep. They're really just amazing over there. They're really amazing me more and more. I'm kind of pulling for them a lot. If you can't tell, they're a little bit of my favorite.
Moving on to Ethereal. Ethereal announced a new hero, Chief Ikiyaka. I think Ikiyaka.
Yeah,
it's an archmage that has an affinity for fire. The reason for their announcement of Chief Ikiyaka, when they haven't really been doing too many hero reveals of late, is they had to replace Kalia, who was slated to be part of their pre-alpha, because she had to have a bunch of visual reworks, so they decided to replace her with this guy, this new Archmage, and they indicated they're in step 2 of their alpha launch. I'm not sure what that means, but I hope it's a good thing. That means that it'll be coming soon. I know it's tentatively, again, for spring of this year, but they don't have a month, date, or anything like that. But making some changes like this, hopefully it'll be coming out pretty damn soon, because I am very, very excited about Ethereal.
Yeah, I am digging the new. He's like a freaky tiki lava man.
Kind of guy.
Yeah, I like it. It looks good.
Did you get?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just gonna say. I remember when Ethereal first came out of the woodworks. That was like, I was so on board with it. I was so hyped for it, and I'm still excited to see what they're able to come up with. But honestly, I think that they're gonna. I don't see something coming from them soon, to be honest. I feel like they're going to be working for at least up until the best case scenario, end of May. Maybe we'll see something. I think they're going to be going through the summer on this one, to be honest, until we see something. Because what they're doing, like, they don't have the Paragon assets like Core and Predecessor do.
Right.
They're doing something completely unique. They have to do testing on a whole nother level, no pun intended, because verticality. They have to do things that no one else has done before, quite literally. And so I don't, honestly, if as a like, I'm an optimist, so that's why I said maybe we'll see something later this year. But if I was a pessimist, I'd say we don't see anything until next year, to be honest, because I would rather them just polish everything out. Again, I'd rather them polish everything out, make sure their character models are good, make sure something, because if they just, if they stay quiet and we're all over here worried about core and predecessor and we're doing our own thing, then they come out of nowhere and just boom, gameplay right in your faces and like, look at this, and then everyone's gonna be like, oh wow. Because to be honest, I think the majority of at least my fan base, even though Ethereal looks really cool, and I know some people who just like, they don't care at all about core, they don't care all about predecessor, they want Ethereal now. Most of them are looking for that Paragon too. They're looking for core, they're looking for predecessors. So I hope that Ethereal, it's kind of a lose-lose situation in their sense, because if they release something too early, it's not going to look polished, it's not going to look good, people are not going to pay attention to it. If they wait too long, people are going to forget about it because of core and predecessor. So it's they're kind of in a hard spot right now, but hopefully they still produce something incredible, and they could, I mean, like I tell everybody, these games are not dependent entirely on the old Paragon fan base. There's going to be new people that look at these games, and you can build new communities, and you can have new people advertise for them, and it's just going to be like any other game on Steam or whatever that just picks up steam, again, no pun intended, and then everybody can just jump in on that. So those are my 2 cents on Ethereal as of right now.
Yeah, it's actually interesting, I think, that you brought up them kind of working from scratch, because they did even mention in that announcement, when they announced the new myth, they talked a little bit about how they underestimated the time that it took to make everything from scratch. So I think they realize they have to set some realistic goals, and maybe that's why they are being a little bit more hush hush as far as saying like, this is a date that we're, it sounds like they're not going to make the every 3 weeks mistake. So
So that wraps it up for the news and updates for this week. Now we have a quick public service announcement about closed alphas and how you can treat them. But before we get into that, I have a correction from last week. Last week's video, I said that Epic takes 17%. It is 12%. They waive the 5% that would normally go for the Unreal Engine. However, that's not a guaranteed thing. That was kind of a promotional deal when they first started out. So it's not guaranteed that these games will be able to release on the Epic Store's launcher for 12%, but it's pretty much fucking like 99.9%. So sorry about that. Didn't mean to put out bad information. So there's the correction for you. So now let's get into this closed alpha PSA. The following is a PSA regarding closed alphas. I know that a majority of the show's viewers don't need any of this information, as they are rational humans that will treat the alphas as they are supposed to. With that being said, I'm hoping this will reach the minority that are expecting actual Paragon in all of its glory in the first iteration of whatever our beloved developers release. There is a disturbing trend I've noticed while lurking the shadows of the various Discord servers. People seem to think that the closed alpha releases for these games will be fully functional versions of Paragon that will satisfy all of their third-person MOBA needs. They won't. None of them will. We've been conditioned of late to view closed alphas as functional versions of a game minus a few features. This is due to a recent trend in gaming to give access to games' alphas for money. In order to do this, the developer needs to have a far more functional alpha version of what used to be the norm. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some games never would have seen the light of day without offering a paid alpha. The Forest is an excellent example of that. However, we can't expect the kind of polished alphas that games like Ark had from any of these indie companies. They're going to have to use their alphas for what they were intended for. Here's the definition of an alpha. An alpha test is a preliminary software field test carried out by a team of users in order to find bugs that were not found previously through other tests. The main purpose of alpha testing is to refine the software product by finding and fixing the bugs that were not discovered through previous tests. There are two things I would like everyone to take away from that. First, the alphas for these games will have more bugs than a cheap horse hoo-ha. Second, if you're lucky enough to get all up in that, you have a responsibility to the developer to find and report those bugs. I'm not saying you can't sweat it out and try hard to win, but maybe don't do that every single game. Take a little time to chase some butterflies and see if you can get stuck between some rocks. Try to find out what happens if you target a Muriel just before she takes off. Actively try to break the game and then be as detailed as possible when reporting it when you succeed. Most importantly, if something about these alphas pisses you off, Don't take your rage to the internet and shit all over the game. Focus that anger into constructive criticism that can be used by the developers to fix problems they may be unaware of. If someone is horribly overpowered, don't run straight to Reddit and try to farm worthless upvotes with your dialogue on how broken the game is. Let the developer know what the problem is, and if you're really feeling frisky, suggest some ways it may be fixed. With all of that being said, I know the viewers of this show are smart enough to do all of that without me saying shit, but I do enjoy hearing myself talk. Back to the show. Okay, alright, cool. We'll bring it back. We'll move on to the topic of discussion for this week, which is how hashtag every 3 weeks contributed to the downfall of Paragon. Originally the topic was hashtag every 3 weeks a good thing, and I think we're all so much in agreement that it was not, that I changed it to how it contributed to the downfall of Paragon. So, Britik, I know as soon as I mentioned this topic, you had some pretty strong opinions. What do you have to say about it?
Oh, yeah, so, hashtag every 3 weeks. So in the beginning, it seemed like a nice idea, right? In the beginning, it was like, oh yeah, we have this consistent, scheduled flow of content. You guys aren't going to get bored. Stick around. This isn't going anywhere. We're going to be giving you something nice and juicy every 3 weeks, usually in the form of a new character to play. And it was all like really nice and dandy. But that quickly turned into an issue because the more characters and heroes and mechanics you incorporate into the game, the more balancing issues you're going to have. And they ended up stacking too many straws on the camel's back. They weren't able to clean up their mess quick enough before the next 3 weeks arrived. So at a certain point, you had this streak of overpowered heroes on launch. For example, I think it was FaZe, Morgesh, then Revenant. I don't remember exactly in what order they came out, but I remember FaZe being broken AF on launch, Revenant being broken AF on launch, Morgesh being broken AF on launch, Wukong also pretty broken on launch. So they were just they were so focused on this every 3 weeks nonsense that they just stopped balancing the game and they just couldn't keep up with their own mess. Like, it was like there was a tornado in their room. They were trying to clean up their room, but the tornado was way quicker at causing the damage. So it's just kind of a mishap on their own part, a self-generated madness, and they were so cocky about it that they were like, no, we don't need to fix this. We're just going to keep going with the every 3 weeks. We're going to make sure that we stick to this quotient. We're going to do whatever we can to stick to it. We don't care about anything else. I'm like, dude, maybe it's okay to take, 6, 9, 12 weeks off from releasing a new hero and just making sure your game actually works properly and that everything is balanced, because MOBAs, everyone knows that the biggest problem in MOBAs is balance. And every time you add a new hero, that just adds another thing to the equation and makes it even more difficult. And it was just kind of frustrating because it's like, dude, you're piling on this giant snowball rolling down the hill. Can you just stop and fix it, please? Because Revenant was still broken for a really long time, and then when the new card system came out, he was broken again. And so instead of stopping, I think that's also another reason why the whole card system thing didn't go as well when they released the new version in V42, is because instead of saying, hey, okay, hold on, how can we balance the heroes right now as they are in this current item system? Instead of doing that like any other normal developer would do, hey, let's balance this first and then move on. They were like, you know what? You know what the real issue here is? The card system. That's what the real issue here is. So let's change that and then balance everything backwards around that new system. Yeah. And it's like, dude, you already had the foundation. Just polish up the edges. Make it work. Like, you had the frosting on your cake. Okay, well, it's not the frosting's fault. It's the base layer of the cake, so let's just flip the cake upside down. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
Well said, well said.
So, honestly, I think that if they did every 9 weeks, I think League of Legends releases a new character every 2 months. That gives plenty of time to polish the character's abilities in relation to all the other heroes. That gives enough time for the community to play around with the hero enough to see all the exploits and stuff with the item systems. Mm-hmm. I think being able to do that, plus having a longer span in between everything, in between the hero releases, would give you a longer time period to polish up other things, like how the buffs worked, how Fangtooth worked, how Orb Prime worked, instead of just being like, okay, we think this is going to work, so let's throw this in there, and then let them figure it out for 9 weeks, and then maybe do something about it. an excellent example about this was towers. When they changed towers from the legacy towers, which actually scaled in damage the longer you were in the radius, to the whatever the hell they were on Monolith, where they hit like wet noodles. I had an amazing YouTube video out, actually, where in the beginning clip, we were all level 1, level 2, like the game just started. And I was within my inhibitor radius. And the enemy Kwang went through, I was on Chimera or whatever, they were a Kwang. They went through our jungle and started slicing me underneath my own inhibitor with both tier 1 tower and tier 2 tower still up. They were slicing me under inhibitor, and they survived 2 inhibitor shots at level 2 with both towers in front of them. And I'm like, how is that not an insta-death? Like every other like that's the whole point, is to set up boundaries. So stuff like that just kept piling on, and you would have a problem with towers. You'd have a problem with items. You'd have a problem with the buffs. You have these 4 characters that are OP, and everybody keeps picking them because no one else can compete. And it's like everything. It's like if you just took that minute to, okay, instead of worrying so much about the next hero release, let's fix these problems first, then maybe it could have gone better. But yeah, that's my whole spiel on every 3 weeks. I think having a set quota on releasing heroes, even if the heroes come out more broke than Eminem and 8 Mile, then that, like, it doesn't work at all, okay? It doesn't work at all.
1000% agree. Yeah, I had kind of wrote down my thoughts of what I was going to say, and that was basically everything. It was just them trying to meet a ridiculous deadline that they had created, and they just kept shooting themselves in the foot. And instead of taking care of one wound, they just shot themselves again. You know, it was like they couldn't, like he said, they couldn't clean up their own mess before, you know, introducing another one. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
I think part of the problem, like you were saying, with they never really balanced the game. It seemed that they were trying to balance the game by introducing heroes that would fix the meta.
Yeah.
And that just didn't work at all. Like, they were like, stun meta, like, Rampage and Decker are dominating right now. Let's release Yin. Like, no, that's not how it works, man.
or Terra. Terra was a good example of that.
Yeah. He was like, stun meta is way too strong. Let's release Terra. She could be immune to stuns. And it didn't work out. Talking to a lot of these developers for these third-person MOBAs, none of them are going to set quotas on themselves for how soon they release heroes, and thank God for that.
Yeah,
like you said, Britik, at the very first, I was so hyped up about that. I was like, oh my God, these guys are going to do a new hero every 3 weeks. This is awesome. Mm-hmm. But then you get shit like Mandy. I think you mentioned Zinx. She was broken on the other end of the spectrum. She was fucking terrible when she was released. I mean, a lot of people did good with her, but if you did good with her, great. I don't think you could deny that Zinx was horribly broken on release.
Well, they had pretty much said, and, you know, if I'm wrong, I thought they had pretty much said, you know, she's really going to work better in B42, but we're going to go ahead and release her now because...
Oh, dude, that was so off.
It makes no sense. Like...
Oh.
That is what they said. They were like,
I remember that. I remember that now. Yeah.
She's for the new card system. Just try her out on the new card system. How about try not releasing her until the new card system comes out?
By the way, when the new card system came out, there was only one build that worked on her. You guys remember what that build was?
Oh, fuck, I forget. It was something shaman,
I never played her.
Withering Death, right? It was the card that was the aura, where you would take damage yourself, but then everyone around you damage as well.
Oh,
but
God, yeah.
She had that mana shield on, and then she would have a card on her. It was like that 3-point cursed card that gave you health regeneration, but you couldn't remove it anymore. Possessed Spriken, right? You would have Possessed Spriken, and then you would have that, I forget the exact name of the call. I just keep calling it Withering Death because I think that was the name of the passive. But you would just be a walking tank, impossible to kill because your health regen. You'd have some other tank card as your third card. And then you would just be this aura of slow death around everyone. Plus you'd have the stun. Plus you'd have the damage over time from her thing. That was the only thing that worked. Other than that, she could be played as carry. She could. But she was not like Wraith. She wasn't Revenant. Like, she was not a top carry pick at all. Yeah, it was Withering Shadow. My stream told me it's Withering Shadow. That's the name of that card.
I'm surprised you remembered so many of those cards.
I know. I remember pictures. If you tell me a picture, I'm like, yeah, I remember that card.
Yeah, tell me the effect and I'll remember it. But
Oh,
yeah,
see, I'm pictures.
that's the other thing too. Like, in order to fix an unbalanced hero, they had to make it seem as if it was part of the hashtag every 3 weeks. Like Twin Blast. When they did Twin Blast rework, they were like, instead of every 3 weeks, it's Twin Blast. He's like a new hero, but we've done so many changes to him. It's like, stop trying so hard for this every 3 weeks bullshit, man. Just let it go.
Bad all the way around.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Just let it go.
But yeah, I really think that was one of the many things that contributed to the downfall of Paragon, and that's one of the pitfalls that these newer developers stand to gain from, because they can learn from the mistakes that Epic made. Just like we were talking about with MetaBuff introducing a ranked system. I think a lot of these games are going to do a ranked system because they, like I said, learn from the mistakes of Epic. And that really benefits us, that these companies are so small that we get to talk to them directly and have way more of an effect than we ever did with Epic. Because, Epic was a pretty large company, and they don't have to care about what we think as much. But these companies do.
Yeah.
We're the boss more than ever right now as the community.
Yeah, and that's really reassuring. It really is, because you have a plethora of opinions, and it seems to me like both Omega Studios and MetaBuff are trying to, and also Undying Games, they're all trying really hard to listen to as many voices as possible, not just the competitive people, but also more the casual players in the audience. And because it was a really big difference whether you were in Silver or whether you were in Diamond, whether you thought the item system was good or bad, whether you thought this hero was OP or not. A point blank example is Chimera, for example. Like, you talk to most people down in Silver, they think Chimera is like this overpowered god who it's unable to get away from him. You talk to people in Diamond, and he's one of the worst heroes in Jungle. So it's just just jumping across the moon when it comes to different opinions, and I'm glad they're listening to a wide range of them. And I'm glad that, especially the way MetaBuff is tailoring their surveys, for example, how they have specific influencer surveys, they have specific competitive player surveys, they have general community surveys, and the fact that they're compiling all of that together and making that extra effort to hear everybody out, that's really super duper important.
Yeah.
That's, it's like they're taking advice from the upper class, the middle class, and the poverty bracket all at once, and that's really important if you want to build a really solid overarching game that appeals to as wide of a player base as possible.
It's very reassuring, yes.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to break real quick. I'm getting messages from Owen from Undying Games. Let's see if we got more updates that we can include on the show here.
Ooh, maybe we have some breaking news.
Breaking news. Boris is released right now.
Yeah, Boris will be playable in the
alpha. He sent over some new art, which I will show in the podcast, in the actual show. It's just a little map. And he says that they're working on giving an announcement for a contest for people who would like to work with us on our lore department. So
cool.
Apparently Undying is going to have a contest to see who would like to work to do some lore for them. They're very lore heavy at Undying Games.
Yeah. Cool.
So a little late, Owen, to get it into the show. We'll get it in anyway.
Yeah. So what is Undying Games? Undying Games are the people who are making Ethereal. That's who they are.
Oh yeah, I probably should have prefaced that, huh? I should have said what they were making.
He had a question in his stream.
Okay. So I think that's it for the discussion of how every 3 weeks contributed to the fall of Paragon. So if that's something that you're like, oh man, why aren't these guys releasing heroes as fast as Epic did? There's your answer, and there's why it's a good thing. So moving on, here's a suggestion that I keep seeing in pretty much all the Discords for the various games. It's from Death Dealer, and it's about the item shop in game. It's going to be like other MOBA game with a full shop. My question is there any chance that I could build a deck and use it rather than going to a full shop every time? What I'm trying to say is we would like any system of highlighting specific items for each hero. After all, thank you for the great work, and I did not believe it could come alive again. So basically what they're saying is, like in Paragon, you're able to build a deck and then that you could, that deck was kind of prefabricated. You didn't have access to everything. I think this is a good suggestion. I think it's one that a lot of them are going to go with, because it's pretty common in MOBAs to have, you know, you have access to the entire shop, but you have builds that you can use beforehand to kind of simplify your buying process. Was that like, I haven't really played LoL. Was it like that in LoL, Britik?
There were recommended paths that you can take with your items.
Okay.
I know they do that in Smite as well, where they have like a recommended section.
Yeah.
It's not like a pre-built. It's not like a pre-built path, like a deck was pre-built, but it gives you recommended items based on power or defense or whatever. Yeah.
I know.
From what I can remember, they might have changed it up. It's been a really long time since I played League of Legends.
I know in Dota, what they have is they actually have, the community can vote on the various builds that you can follow, build paths like you were saying, and then you can just like pick the top rated build model, or you can go look for a specific YouTuber or streamer that you like and see if they have a build model for that hero in Dota, and then you can just implement that and use their build model. I would like to see something like that in these games. I don't know if that would work or not.
So, Stream is correcting me. So, League does have item sets and recommended items, and Smite also has a pre-builder item system. So, you can do pre-builds, and then apparently it will auto-purchase items for the specific character that you made a pre-build for. So, you can make pre-builds for specific characters because there's so many of them, and you might forget what you normally build on them. So, when you get into game, it will automatically purchase the items that you set in the queue to build them.
Okay,
cool. That's actually really interesting. I'd be down for that in Paragon, to be honest.
I think you could do. Oh, there's my knife. I think you could do abilities as well in Smite, if I'm not mistaken. You could as soon as you would level up, it would level up certain abilities in a certain order. So like what was it? Steel, his old shield ability where he'd hold the shield up. I barely ever leveled that up until I absolutely had to. And I mean, that's something that newer players might think, oh, that's awesome, but it really wasn't. So I'm really hoping to see Steel's shield wall where he throws the wall on the ground.
Yeah, that was nice.
I really want to see that come back. What did you guys prefer Steel-wise? I'm going way off the track here. What did you prefer, the bonk or the bull rush?
Oh, Amanda, you go first.
I never played
Mandy
Steel.
Don't play no Steel.
Mandy don't mess around with no Steel. So, I don't know. Which did I prefer having done to me? I don't know.
Whoa, that's a different podcast.
No.
Okay, listen.
Back to those sheepskin condoms.
Oh,
listen.
God.
Okay, so
never gonna show my face on the internet again.
Steel, fun fact, Steel was almost my first master skin ever. I got him to master rank 9, and then Richter came out, and I did the hero race, the master skin hero race with Richter. So I got Richter to all the way from 0 to 10, while Steel was still at 9. And then I went back and got Steel from 9 to 10. So I played a lot of Steel in Legacy, and I also liked playing him in Monolith. I think the Bull Rush made him a better jungler than the little bonk. And I also preferred the Bull Rush when it came to engaging the enemies, because what you could do is you could just slide on in with the Bull Rush, and then you can ult in. Or back in the days when Shockwave would knock people up, it was super overpowered because you would come next to them, knock them up with Shockwave, use your ult, knock them up again, use Bull Rush, knock them up again. Was just and so if you also had a Richter on your teams, Richter jungle and then Steel offlane or whatever it was, Richter could put Shockwave on as well. So you would have Shockwave from Steel, Shockwave from Richter, ult from Steel, ult from Richter, Bull Rush from Steel, pull from Richter, silence from Richter, and then at that point their abilities would recharge already, because during that duration you would. So I called that the Bash Bros combo, and it was just ridiculous. So Bull Rush was really, really good if you knew how to use it with what combos. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very off-topic question. I'm sorry. I think that finishes up for the show for now. Let's move on to plugs. Mandy, you got anything to plug this week?
I released a new video today as of the recording. It's a fun little puzzle-based game for the Cheapskate Gamers series that I do on my channel. If you want to check it out.
And Britik, what do you got going on?
Well, right now I've been streaming every day on my channel. Right now I've been streaming this podcast live for my audience here. Once again, big shout out to everyone on. Thank you so much. And other than that, I've been making YouTube videos to juicy content, juicy news when it comes to Predecessor, Core, Ethereal, anything of that like. When Predecessor comes out, I'll be one of the first people posting gameplay. When Core comes out, same thing. And I'll be trying to put as much of my constructive criticism behind those videos as possible, as well as when something seriously playable is released to many people, I'll be doing my tips and tricks and builds and guides again like I did back in Paragon. So hopefully people will find something among my content that they would enjoy because I do provide a good variety of it. Yeah, that's basically what's been going on with me as of late, Mongoose.
And if you guys aren't already subscribed, or if you're not following Britik on Twitch, I'll have those links in the video description below. I'm sure you guys probably already are, but just in case, I'll provide them. If you're watching this as the premiere, then it's about to end. If you're in chat and you want to continue on, just check out my Discord. We'll hang out in there for a bit. If you're watching this at the video, this is the end. Thank you all for coming out and joining us, and stay tuned next week for another episode of For the Minions. Bye!
Bye!
Mangoose!
Oh, no, Dundee had a slight positive, so we put him through the...
Ask them if they sell sheepskin condoms.
But he should be okay now. Actually, my husband's the one that put in
I need condoms for sheep.
Put in the order, and I had told him that, I'm so sorry. I had told him that, they probably weren't going to be able to do that for us. Yes, ma'am.
Ask them if Velcro gloves will harm the sheep in any way.
It's great. I'm really sad that no one's in my stream yet. Oh, man.
Oh, so you're streaming Mandy's vet call?
Okay, that sounds good. And we also have a new kitten that we might be bringing in for to get her spayed and get her set up and everything. So
what kind of STDs do sheep have? Ask them that.
Oh, okay.
Because my hair keeps growing a lot. I don't know if it's like sheep wool. And I'm not talking, you can see that it's not on my head that I'm talking about. It's other places that I'm getting this sheep wool. Just crazy with it.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Are you not going to ask them about the condoms for sheep? I also need them for the sheep because I go both ways with the sheep. I need a condom to put on a sheep.
Bye-bye.
That the sheep is going to use on me.
Goat skin works too.
I hate you so much. Oh my god. That was impossible. All I was hearing was like, I don't know, sheepskin condoms.
The best.
Hold on, let me get...
You want to get situated?
Oh shit, that was
You need to put your face on?
Oh god, yeah.
Game face?
Make sure I'm recording.